Ну что же, здравствуйте еще раз. Спасибо большое, что нашли время присоединиться к нашему вебинару по высшему образованию за рубежом. Еще раз я представлюсь, меня зовут Андрей. Сегодня мы расскажем, чем отличается образование в США, Великобритании, Ирландии, Швеции и Голландии. Конкретно вот эти страны. И немножко расскажу прежде о нас. То есть этот вебинар организован компанией «Интеллектуал», и мы официальные представители большого количества зарубежных учебных заведений в Российской Федерации. И в данном случае мы проводим этот вебинар при поддержке консорциума университетов ONCAMPUS. Сам «Интеллектуал» был основан в 1995 году, то есть мы имеем огромный опыт, как сказал один из наших молодых клиентов, что это было еще до интернета. Да, это было до интернета. Так что мы не то что сами смотрим где-то и вам с умным видом рассказываем, мы уже четверть века в этой индустрии варимся, мы знаем все от начала и до конца в динамике, можно сказать. И мы можем вам рассказать про все тонкости и различия систем образования и какие-то другие аспекты по университетам, школам, языковым даже курсам. Мы можем существенно облегчить процесс вашего поступления, одним словом. То есть мы берем на себя ваше оформление, полное взаимодействие с принимающей стороной, в данном случае с университетами, ну и, конечно, исчерпывающие консультации. А, Должен, наверное, сразу сказать, что в рамках этого вебинара наши консультации бесплатные, и оформление на программы тоже будет бесплатным. Об этом я скажу еще чуть позже. Сейчас по техническим аспектам этот вебинар будет на английском языке, он продлится около часа. Мы разделили его на несколько таких тематик по странам, да. Каждый примерно блок будет по 15 минут, после чего спикеры ответят на ваши вопросы. Вопросы мы более чем приветствуем, поэтому, пожалуйста, пишите в чат. Если будет возможность сразу на английском, будет замечательно, чтобы спикеры могли ваш вопрос сразу прочитать. И по вашим вопросам ответы будет Ирина писать в чате. Если нужен какой-то более развернутый, да, ответ, то мы уже, соответственно, озвучим это во время вебинара. Так, да, мы в прямом эфире. Сегодня четверг, 25 ноября, поэтому будний день, да, у нас не все могут присоединиться, идет запись, и все, кто не может сейчас присоединиться или кто-то должен будет уйти раньше, имейте в виду, что мы пришлем обязательно запись, и если вы уже смотрите сейчас это в записи, значит, смотрите также ссылочку в том же письме, где вы получили эту запись, смотрите кнопку для заявки на консультацию, которая сейчас Ирина еще раз продублирует в чате. Если вы всерьез рассматриваете обучение за рубежом на ближайшие там 22-23, да, в любом случае, то мы с удовольствием вам подскажем, расскажем, все это бесплатно, оставляйте свою заявку, в чате есть ссылочка. И у нас, к сожалению, не будет времени на полный обзор по образованию в разных странах, потому что это огромный пласт информации, мы подсветим лишь самые важные моменты. Нам поступает достаточно много вопросов по образованию в тех или иных странах, и мы решили, что мы, прежде чем углубляться вот совсем далеко в детали, соберем такой общий обзор по поводу самых популярных стран. В основном это касается, естественно, английского языка. И таким образом вы сможете во время этого вебинара услышать ответы на самые распространенные вопросы, типа как выбрать университет. Главное, как именно выбрать университет, который подходит лично вам. Вы можете потом это уточнить, если не услышите этого ответа. Как поступить в университет из России, допустим, после окончания школы или там, переводом из своего вуза, у каждого своя ситуация, какие экзамены нужны, вообще имеет ли смысл париться с ЕГЭ, какие специальности, где изучать, да, какую страну выбрать и так далее. Ну и всех интересует, естественно, финансовый вопрос, можно ли работать, например, во время обучения, или там остаться работать после получения уже диплома, какие доступны стипендии, ну и, конечно, сколько вообще все это может стоить. И еще раз я хотел бы сразу подчеркнуть, что грантов здесь раздаваться не будет, обучение платное, но некий стипендиальный фонд присутствует. Стипендий на самом деле много, я думаю, что мы даже не сможем их покрыть все, но если вы оставите заявку в форме, которую вот Ирина вывесила, то мы обязательно с вами свяжемся и вам пришлем дополнительно и расскажем. Стипендий много. Иногда бывает символически, там 2-3 тысячи там, фунтов, евро, долларов. Иногда бывают приличные, вплоть до 50% от стоимости обучения. Но в любом случае это предусматривает, что какой-то изначальный бюджет у вас есть. Ну и чтобы ответить на все вопросы, которые я раньше немножко озвучивал, мы пригласили наших коллег из Великобритании, США, то есть это эксперты высокого уровня в области образования из консорциума университетов ONCAMPUS, который объединяет десятки рейтинговых зарубежных университетов. То есть это те самые люди, которые непосредственно работают с абитуриентами, с теми, кто собирается поступать, и помогают им поступать в обозначенные вот зарубежные университеты. И я рад представить наших специальных гостей. Сначала это Брайан О'Мелли, директор ONCAMPUS Boston. Brian, hello.
Hi, Andre. Happy to be here.
Yeah, and I think it's dark in Moscow, but I believe it's good morning in Boston.
It's just a beautiful day here.
What's time is it?
Right now it is 9 o'clock and it's Thanksgiving Day, so it's a fabulous day to be here, and especially in Boston.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much.
And we also have Peter McLaughlin. У нас также один из экспертов, это Питер Маклафлин, который директор ONCAMPUS по Великобритании. Good afternoon, Peter, in London.
Hi everyone. Good greetings from London. Sunny day here as well. It's around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you so much for the invitation to be joining you, Andre. ONCAMPUS, as part of Cambridge Education Group, is excited to be working with you, collaborating with you.
Thank you very much. И, друзья, прежде чем передать слово нашим гостям, напомню еще раз, что помимо вебинара мы приглашаем вас на индивидуальные встречи, где вы уже сможете лично пообщаться с представителями и задать свои конкретные вопросы, потому что каждая ситуация абсолютно уникальная и разная, несмотря на то, что кажется все похоже, и вы сможете получить детальную консультацию по поступлению в учебное заведение США, Великобритании, Ирландии, Швеции, Голландии. И да, это тоже бесплатно. И в рамках вебинара, как я уже говорил, оформление на обучение с нашей стороны будет бесплатным. Как официальные представители мы можем себе такое позволить. И если вас это интересует, пожалуйста, заполните форму под ссылочкой в чате, которую Ирина вывешивает. Ну что ж, и ссылка, ну, вообще, скажем так, это не то, что там маркетинг, уловки, никакой чарной пятницы, но это предложение действует до 15 декабря. Это связано лишь с административными сроками, которые устанавливают университеты при приеме и обработке документов. Поэтому, пожалуйста, постарайтесь как можно более оперативно направить свои заявки. И сейчас я передаю слово уже нашим коллегам, и начинает Peter McLaughlin. So, Peter, I give the floor to you. Please welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, participants, for joining us this evening. If I can just give a brief introduction, I'm Peter McLaughlin. I'm Partnership and Progression Director for ONCAMPUS, which is part of Cambridge Education Group. We have about 3,000 international students studying in the UK, Europe, and the United States. And therefore, this is why maybe I've been given, though, unfortunately, about 15 minutes to try and promote the United Kingdom to you. So I will do my best as to why to study in the UK. in 15 minutes. So really, we need to start with the most significant aspect is that the United Kingdom, as nearly all on campus, part of Cambridge Education Group, partner universities we work with, they're all well ranked. They're all well ranked in terms of QS ranking, as well as other league tables like the Sunday Times, many other UK or European, but also importantly, the Financial Times rankings and the Economist, because I noticed, Andre, you were talking about business schools, and the good thing about On Campus, we work with many of the world leading top 100 QS world ranked business schools. But this session is particularly to talk about United Kingdom. Well, altogether we have a high grouping of UK universities in the top 50, certainly in the top 200 of the world league tables. And in fact, even in the top two, the top five, I think you've already got the backdrop there in your screenshot of Oxford University, which is one of the leading ones, obviously, for world rankings. And then my background, for those interested, is Cambridge University. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I've always wanted to teach and become an educator. And I've had experience running colleges and schools and centres in the UK, but also the US, and working in different parts of Asia. So the rankings league tables will tell us one thing, which is all to do with the quality of the experience that students can expect in terms of knowledge transfer, education, facilities, resources. All these things are significantly important, particularly now, because the world has changed. Things are very much different now. We have to be looking very carefully at the future and the future growth of industries, restoring our economies, restoring normality back to our ways of life, and sciences and invention, relying obviously on those aspects of science and innovation, which we've seen with progression in terms of vaccine immunization. I know different parts of the world are responding differently, but we're managing it well. And so the quality of the world research of those universities and the quality of the research impact is so important for all of those best universities, in where they're giving not just the best of knowledge, but the latest research, whether that's a biological revolution or the IT or AI, artificial intelligence. All these aspects are so significant now when you're selecting and looking at the background or the quality or the positioning of the university, but it's focused on research and research impact. In other words, is it meaningful for now, for us, this next part of the 21st century, really making a difference? And many of the UK universities, well over a majority of them, their international research is well recognized in terms of quality, contribution, and responding to coping with those global challenges and changes. So we have a lot of accolades, and I think UK is #2 in the world for science and technology and research, and there's a powerhouse for that. So again, that's an added attraction. I'm going to have to move quite quickly through the slides, if you could help, Marie. What's so important, although well, we've got about 300 universities and colleges tucked away here in the small islands of the United Kingdom, but as I said before, many of them are highly world ranked and regarded. What's interesting here is that our government, for many years now, many decades, when I was at university at Cambridge, the government has always been concerned about having consistency and quality in as to the delivery of home education and also our international standing. So we have active bodies which are independent also of the government, that inspect the quality of the teaching and the learning, the curriculum, and most importantly now, graduate outcomes in terms of employability, as that the value of one paying those fees, whether one is a home or a European or an international student, that it brings good value for a student's career prospects or graduate prospects. And this is where it's done. This is the independent bodies, is QAA, which used to be the long-standing regulatory body, but now it's been replaced most recently by the Office for Students, which is again a government inspectorate, making sure that all our universities are significantly responding to the review by inspections, and those tend to be every several years, every 5 years, the visits to the universities and having a whole review of the facilities and the teaching and the standards and the graduate results and the outcomes for employability and student satisfaction. And all that is benchmarked against, sorry if I'm talking technical, I am an academic after all, but is benchmarked against what we call the UK Quality Code of Higher Education. And also there are independent bodies that are researching in terms of excellence in the framework of the quality of research, and that's called the REF. So that's just 3 of our independent bodies and self-governing in terms of a governing of teaching, research and scholarship, academic leadership and scholarship, in having the cutting edge thinking and contribution to industry. Next slide, please. What you can expect with the United Kingdom is that because we have the regulation from Office for Students, you'll find that when you research universities, that many of them will have to be consistent with the quality of what they're promoting, whether that's their brochures, their websites, their course details, their student outcomes. All that is regulated and reviewed by government bodies. And so what you'll find is that often the same language is found on a lot of the universities' websites, but what you can be assured of is that that brings a high level of expectation, obviously, but a high level of quality and delivery. And it's that quality, world-class quality, which is so important, particularly if you are looking to have innovative teaching. Obviously, the COVID has knocked a lot of what we were used to in terms of teaching learning environments, and now we have hybrid and blended, but this is universal, this is common everywhere. And so therefore that new innovative way of teaching is blended with the face-to-face and the learning and the lectures and the classrooms. But where particularly the UK is quite significant, and I have taught in many different parts of the world, is a higher level focus on what I would describe as independent critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity at the same time, in terms of having approaching issues and problems and being taught on smaller class ratios as well, but actually encouraging one to look at the world and its futures and the global challenges and problems. So that critical analysis, critical review, so important in all aspects of learning, whether that's in the classroom, seminars, laboratories, or on digital channels, blended learning channels, or sometimes often referred to as hybrid. Also, what's important with the United Kingdom, and I really believe in that because I have, as I say, taught in different parts, is that I think our curriculum brings a truly global perspective. Because of the nature of our population and peoples, we have tremendous diversity, which means we have a whole mix of knowledge, experience, insight, cultures, attitude. And I think that shows with the perspective of the teaching at all our universities, that we're encouraging every student, home, European, international, to have a global perspective and a global outlook. And you'll see that in the student satisfaction and the ratings that we have with those league tables that I've mentioned. Another focus is particularly with the UK is that we have a concern for many aspects of the world situation. So therefore, when we're teaching, we will be dealing with real world situations, whether they're home, domestic, industry, economy, global, international issues, global poverty, the pandemic as well, inequality. All these things are what I would describe as real life issues that is being addressed in the curriculum. And that's what you'll find, particularly no matter what subject area you'll be specializing, as you said, Andre, engineering, sciences, business, social sciences, or politics. Also, what's quite interesting, the partners that ONCAMPUS works with, particularly of top universities, I've just flashed up a few there. Southampton is one, Reading Aston University is another. These are high standards of achievement and accomplishments that those universities have been regarded for the quality of their teaching of skills for careers and jobs and futures. And I think that's very important to highlight now. With one of my other slides that I'll mention about graduate employability, is because much of the integrated teaching is focused on skill sets that's required now, particularly for the 21st century and post-pandemic 21st century as well. So what you'll notice is that nearly all our universities, and obviously the best ones, will quote higher figures of UK graduate employability. And some of the partners we work with like Henley Business School, Southampton, Aston, they will have well up at 90% of their graduates, not necessarily just postgraduates, but undergraduates, finding jobs and employment or further study opportunity within 6 months of their progression. So these are statistics which have to be proven and real and are reviewed. So again, very significant, important aspect of graduate employability now. And in my view, Andre, how things have changed, possibly even more important than QS rankings, because quite a number of QS World Rank UK or European and global universities are very important, obviously, but not necessarily every business school or every engineering school is in that top ranking. It's the graduate employability and the graduate prospects, I think, with having the world changing as it is, which is quite a significant aspect to consider when reviewing choice, okay, of universities. Next slide, please. And what's so interesting about UK is that we have carefully been looking at the changes that have been taking place. Obviously, many of you may be informed about the changes that's happened in Europe and UK with Brexit, etc. But even before all those changes took place, UK was working quite hard when producing what we call a post-study work opportunity for international students to come to the UK to study undergraduate or postgraduate, but then to be able to stay on. We had this arrangement quite a few years ago, and it's been restored now, and it's in place so that students who graduate, Russian students, international students who graduate and have studied in the UK undergraduate or postgraduate now have an opportunity to stay on for 2 years with a graduate visa route. And that means after you've successfully completed your degree, you can actually then, you must apply at that time for a graduate visa. If you're doing a PhD, doctorate, you even have it, it'll last up to 3 years. And what that means is that students with a UK bachelor's or postgraduate degree, they obviously have to be on a student visa in the first place to be studying, but you'll be able to apply for work, be self-employed, start your own business if that's what you wish, and you can continue living in the UK. For older mature students, that can be with family if you're eligible. You can do a whole range of things, voluntary work, travel abroad. You can leave and then come back again to return to the UK in that period. And then if one is lucky and successful with employment, and that company is willing to take another skilled work visa arrangement with you as your qualified, talented, skilled employee, whether that's in the interest of in the industry of finance or engineering, then obviously you can stay under that visa arrangement. So I've got some points there for you, which breaks down a little bit more of how you apply for that and how it's done. But obviously you have to be an accomplished UK graduate to enjoy and extend those sort of arrangements for you. So that's our graduate visa, which is an exciting field. And just to share with you, the economy is strong. It's obviously we've taken a bit of a knock with the last few years, but there is plenty of opportunity with positions for work, even in the finance industry, which, because I work closely with Henley Business School, we're looking at maybe 10,000 positions for finance graduates at the moment. Looking at LinkedIn or Indeed, looking at the job availability. So there's a tremendous need for talented, qualified graduates. Next slide. Finally, then, trying to keep to time, Andre. Obviously, international students, the benefit for studying in the UK, with my own experience, having taught in different parts of the world, is that you can accomplish your undergraduate degree much quicker, within 3 years, and then with masters, normally 1 year, if you're just concentrating on the academic outcome. What I should mention is also there are financial benefits to be gained in a smaller ways, because we have programs that run at undergraduate level for 4 years, and but you take a break. You take a year in industry or professional placement, like an internship, and these are arranged through the universities, and these are now very, very popular. Have been for a number of years now, highly popular, because that gives the international student, the opportunity of achieving and qualifying with an excellent degree, opportunity of an excellent degree, but at the same time gaining work experience that adds to their own skill base, motivation application, their CV, and the networking and the alumni opportunities that many of our partner universities that we have strong progression for their students to achieve 90% or even 95% graduate employability. All this comes into play. So that's for undergraduate, but as well as postgraduate. So postgraduate students, you need to research things very carefully, but there are 2-year options for postgraduate students doing masters, MSc or MA, and you have a year in industry, and many of those are paid. They have to be organized by the university if you're looking for paid employment. So, and again, that's contributing significantly to your career development and opportunity. We also have scholarships and grants and bursaries. Our universities are pretty generous with that, and they will be, all those details will be found on the particular individual websites. We've obviously have the Chevening College scholarship, but nearly all our partners offer generous scholarships. But that again is different in terms of information per institute. I think next slide. Yeah, sorry. The obvious, which is to perfect your English language in the UK. And obviously that it's straightforward that this is where language skills will be gained significantly. I was in Russia last month, and I met a lot of talented, very capable linguists, but at the same time, and have very high IELTS, some of them as well. Yes, so obviously that's an important aspect to be joining the degree course directly, or with our foundation programs, our pre-degree programs on campus. But the most important thing is, by being here, you will then develop those communication skills, those persuasive communication skills if you're going into the field of business or engineering and sciences, because we put a lot of focus on that aspect of building up the confidences that's so needed, not just in an academic written way, but in a spoken, in teamwork and collaboration, working together, working with others in terms of understanding on a team project, and then having persuasive sort of skills so as to maybe present your argument, and then being able to compromise and listen with the satisfactory outcome, which will be to the result of your postgraduate, but more importantly, those skills that you so much need now in the world of this part of the 21st century, which is adaptability and communication skills, and obviously having an expert qualification as background. Last things, most importantly, is, as I said earlier, the UK is #2 world destination for most international students, overseas students. And what you'll find with the experience on our campuses, with ONCAMPUS, and our partner universities, as well as many others, is that you'll find true cultural diversity. And quite a number of our partners have well over 80, even over 100 different nationalities around the world. And what that brings is that international outlook, international mindedness in terms of looking for understanding many of the world's issues, whatever your subject field may be, if it's sciences and engineering. Obviously, STEM is quite an important area for all our universities and for our futures and for our industries with STEM development. But again, but then at the same time, English is the denominator for all that communication and understanding to be transferred in terms of knowledge and understanding. I think that's more or less it. In 15 minutes, I don't know if I've given a true representation of global Britain, Andre, but I've done my best. But if you have questions from individual participants, I'm happy to field that. Introduce my colleague Will as well, who has just returned. I think you were in Russia just the other day, Will.
Thanks very much, Peter. Yes, indeed I am. I'm in Moscow, just down the road from Andre.
Oh, you're in Moscow still? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well done. No go. Any questions there, Arina?
So yes, Savita, we have a question from Igor, who is asking, is there any opportunity to remain in the UK after completing a degree? And do you give a work permit? And as well as you are an expert on Europe as well, the same question for Sweden and the Netherlands, please.
Yeah. Good question. Obviously, I have a reputation, Andre, of talking too fast, but I did cover that on the presentation. I did talk about what we call the graduate visa route. and this is for all students, international students who qualify with a UK undergraduate and or a UK postgraduate degree. They have the opportunity of applying for a graduate visa that gives 2 years for the opportunity of searching for work in that time, or doing voluntary work, or setting up one's own business, being self-employed. So it's a 2-year opportunity, 3-year if you're a doctorate, PhD student, qualified. But also, I think you mentioned Sweden and Europe. I'll talk a bit further about that. Their arrangements for their post-study work visas, that's 1 year only, I think. But here it's we offer up to two years for postgraduate and undergraduate.
Thank you. And Igor is also asking if you could just, to put it in a nutshell, answer the question about the tuition fees in countries that are shown today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it will depend on the university you're applying to. If you apply to the higher ranked, best ranked universities, what you'll find, if they've got a reputation for research, their fees will be set much higher. If you're applying for medicine and specialist areas, again, UK, those fees would be higher, set at around about £25,000 a year, but the average would be, I think, you're talking of £15,000 to £17,000 on average for most universities. But specialist areas like STEM, medicine, they can be much higher, much higher. Depends on the level of the university. Obviously, all our universities have scholarships as well. So, and Russian students are often very talented, so therefore they'll be able to negotiate. And with your help of intellectual, I'm sure they can make strong applications for those scholarships.
Thank you. And another question from Alexandra. Is it possible to change the route after receiving a bachelor's or master's degree?
Good question. Absolutely, yes. And that's because the flexibility in our selection criteria, because often students would do an undergraduate degree, and it's because they have a passion for that subject, and it may well be economics or politics or history. And if the student particularly wanted to switch even to cybersecurity, which is a STEM specialist area, we have the opportunity particularly with on-campus university partners within London, where students, if they have the passion for going into IT or cybersecurity, they are able to make that transfer onto postgraduate level for an MSc. However, the degree they have may not, like economics and politics, it would have some quantitative methods. That may be a factor. Depends on the nature of the cogent degree. If it's highly specialized, like engineering or finance, often our best universities would want to see evidence of confidence with number or mathematics. That often is the dilemma for students. But no, there's far more flexibility in the UK for those transfer of undergraduate onto postgraduate options, because a lot of it is linked to career prospects as well. And I think, as I said earlier, that the world has changed, and STEM related subjects are much in demand now because of the aspect of AI or digitization and everything. So those prospects are stronger here in the UK as anywhere else.
Thank you. And Ivan is asking an up-to-date question. So what is the current situation with the student housing in London in the context of a pandemic?
That's a mixed question. I think the context of the pandemic, well, interesting one if you keep up to date with current world news, and I don't necessarily mean listen to the BBC. UK is well ahead with the situation here, I think. I would refer to it more as an endemic now, and there's lots of reasons why that may be the case, but obviously we all have to be still careful and responsible with safety measures and things, and wearing masks on public transport and the like. But I live in north side of London. I've been in and out of central London quite recently. It's as busy as ever. The normality is returning. Housing situation, I think, if you are applying for programs, and we do have on-campus programs for foundation and pre-masters, which I no doubt you may say more, that's starting in January, you need to make good applications in advance. One should not just show up at Heathrow or London or any of our cities and just think accommodation is around the corner. It has to be well booked in advance, because obviously London is a global city like everywhere else. Yep, and much in demand. Yep.
Okay, so we're running out of time. Unfortunately,
Okay.
we have 2 more questions. So just 30 seconds each, please.
Okay.
Do you have any graduate programs for the students who already completed a master's degree?
Yep. You can have, I've got a colleague who's got 5 master's degrees. Sorry, I mean, that is unusual, just to keep interest. But yeah, you do need to be careful though with applying for the application as to why you want to study another master's degree. But yes, there is opportunities with universities. If you make a strong presentation and application, yes, that is a possibility to then apply for another master's. Obviously, it need to be slightly different from the subject you've done before.
Okay, and a question from Alina. What are the best cities to study in the UK, and do students from CIS countries need to go through foundation program first?
Yes, this is so important, is that my experience, very good question, is that students would land better and manage their degree with a quality outcome degree at a high level, like a 2-1 or first class, if they have a good foundation to start their undergraduate or even postgraduate studies. And I think it makes a lot of difference, because it's not just giving you the confidence and the skills, but introduction to academic language, different way that we teach as well in terms of thinking and application. So I would say a foundation course, it gives every student a very good start, whether that's a 9-month program or a 6-month program. These are an important preparatory course to take, and I would encourage that for all students. And that's how many of my students at London, on campus London, and at Southampton and Aston, they do so well, and they go on to their degree, but they also come away with a top class degree outcome because of that additional time that they've spent preparing. Students who go direct sometimes struggle and get overwhelmed with the culture shock and stuff that sometimes affects people.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter.
I saw a question on the graphic design. I'll respond to that differently. I'll do that as an email, Andre. Yeah?
Yeah, sure, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
У нас продолжают поступать вопросы. Друзья, к сожалению, по времени мы не вписываемся, поэтому, пожалуйста, связывайтесь с нами лично. Сейчас мы переключаемся на вопрос Америки. And so we have Ryan to speak about the US programs and peculiarities of the educational systems. Peter, please.
Thank you, Andre.
Ryan.
No problem. You know, it's tough to follow, Peter. You create a lot of excitement there for the UK, but I want to take some time just talk about some of the great opportunities we have here in the US through our 2 great locations that we have here in Boston and in Chicago. Now, it's great, it's amazing opportunities, because through our 2 centers, students have the opportunity to study just about anywhere in the US. In the US, there are over 4,000 colleges and universities, which is a lot. And through OnCampus Boston and through IIT, students have access to almost all of those colleges and all of those majors. So the opportunities are infinite. And to illustrate that, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay. So whether a student wants to study business in Boston, or they want to study aerospace in Miami, they want to study a STEM major at IIT in Chicago,
I think Brian has some broadband issues. I'm going to try and get a hold of him. Sorry about that.
Okay, so shall we then try and continue with the European part with Peter back? No. Oh, Peter, are you ready to speak about the European part of your speech?
Yes, while Brian's trying to sort out the technical side, quite happy to do that, no problem at all, as long as people don't mind that it's me speaking for another 15 minutes in English. I'm sorry, my Swedish and my Dutch, not so good, but I can say that I have two of my sons who are in Scandinavia and reside there now in Norway. And so therefore, I know a little bit about that part of the world. Brilliant. Okay, happy to contribute. This is just, again, a quick snapshot on access to some of our partner universities, leading universities in Europe. We'll be typically talking about studying in Holland and in Sweden, but this is just a quick snapshot of the universities that on campus, again, part of Cambridge Education Group. These are the universities we work very closely with, where we have many of our thousands of students, international students studying. The two particular ones as part of OnCampus Europe. We do have other partners, which I'll be talking about perhaps on another webinar a bit later. But at the moment, we work very closely with one of the leading universities in Europe, which is Amsterdam, and the one in Sweden, which is in Lund. So, but I will talk also generally, not just specifically, but generally about studying in those countries and what to expect. First of all, Holland, Netherlands, Dutch language and people, interesting mixture of identity there. We've been working with University of Amsterdam for well over 7 years or more. As you may know, Netherlands itself is quite a small country. In terms of population, it's one of the highest density of populations, I think, in Europe. But we have good success with Russian students, CIS students, international students, progressing on to not just Amsterdam, but other Dutch universities throughout the country. And the interesting thing about Holland is that nearly everyone speaks English, whereas very few people will speak Dutch here, I think, in the UK, maybe in London mostly with visitors or tourists or academics. Amsterdam is one of the world-rated top cities for students to live in. I think what's quite interesting is that it has a very high diverse population as well. All of Europe, in UK, Russia, all parts of the world, we've been affected by the COVID, not just with the health care and the serious, terrible situation there with the fatalities and the management of the illness, but particularly the economies as well have all suffered. And I think you'll find that the Dutch economy has always been vibrant. It relies significantly on trade. As you can see on the map, it's quite small. You've got Rotterdam also as one of the world's leading ports, and it's making one of the fastest recoveries. And what that means is that jobs are returning to normal and there's an anticipated growth as well. So it's interesting when you look at that dynamic. Next slide, please. Most importantly is that if you were interested in applying to Dutch universities, you need to differentiate, be aware of the differentiation between what we describe as research universities and what we also call universities of applied sciences. Research universities, interesting, are going to be universities like Amsterdam, which have a very high ranking globally. I think they're in the top 100. You'll have Utrecht, you'll have Erasmus, you'll have a whole about 14 or so, I think, research universities. These universities are going to be significantly academic and scholastic. They will put a lot of focus on independent learning and study. They also, just to mention, is that they probably don't have internships or placement years or year in industry, because they're accelerating with the undergraduate for 3 years or 1 to 2 years for the postgraduate. So there's a high level of focus on academic research in that particular field, and quite a number of the students will go on to undergraduate, will go on to high level research at postgraduate. But again, you've got world leading universities that achieve in the top 5. I think there's 5 Dutch universities are in the top 100 or the Times Higher Ed ranking. So that's important when you're selecting carefully as to which university you wish to apply to. The next slide shows you the applied that's just an example of the business school that we work very close with at Amsterdam University. It's the business school. Interesting, on the left-hand corner there, you need to note that because of its world ranking and the quality, it's actually a Triple Crown accredited business school. And on campus, we have quite a handful of world-class business schools. We've got Lund as well, which is triple accredited. We have Aston, we have Southampton, we work with Queen Mary. These are all universities that have that higher standard. There's only about, I think, 100 in the world that have that Triple Crown accreditation, meaning its quality and its graduate employability and prospects. So those are the sort of degrees for the undergraduate that we have good success with our foundation, preparing students to go on to those undergraduate degrees at University of Amsterdam or on to postgraduate with our pre-master program, again, assisting students to prepare best for their application and more chance of success or good success on that degree course with the postgraduate school of Amsterdam. Next slide. Different accolades for the quality that you can expect with University of Amsterdam. It's very popular with Russian students, very popular with CIS students, popular with all internationals. However, there is a concern now, I think, if you're reading press, is that there may be more of a quota system for particular regions and parts of the world. But again, it is certainly having the opportunity of studying with ONCAMPUS strengthens one's prospect for progression onto undergraduate, postgraduate degree. Not just with University of Amsterdam, but others, as I mentioned, research universities. Next slide is the applied sciences. There's not that many universities in Holland, to be honest, about 60 or so, because it is a small country, but majority of them are what we call University of Applied Sciences, about 41 of them. And those are normally undergraduate programs that take up to 4 years. But with that, you have an integrated internship. I think that's their terminology, but a year in industry, whatever your subject field. Postgraduate normally is a 2-year major. Again, practical experience, hands-on internships, and also, more importantly, I think, more contact hours for teaching and collaboration and project work. And that's the difference between universities of applied sciences and research universities. In research universities, you get quite a minimum number of contact hours, whereas applied science universities, you've got a very high proportion, and it's practically based. It's more focused on careers, jobs, skill sets, very similar to what the UK does. And launching there as well, with those 4-year majors, you get opportunity of the quite a number of multinational companies are based in Holland. And there's an example of, I mean, all of us in the UK, we've got Microsoft companies, we've got the banking and the finance. But again, Holland is renowned for its trade. So you've got a lot of large corporations, pharmaceutical trade, supply chain, well, there's a third thing, of professional businesses in part of Europe. Next slide. Yep, it's quite a small, beautiful city. I'm sorry, I mean, you have to visit. And everything you hear about it is so attractive. It's such gorgeous, and it's got low-level development too. It's not to some extent like London that has high skyscrapers and the like. So it's gorgeous architecture, gorgeous learning environment, and a fairly relaxed way of life as well, in terms of not too relaxed, but balance between work and life and play. And there's just a map showing its location. The application system, I was asked to talk a little bit about that. It's quite straightforward for even if students wish to make if they had strong enough application and qualifications and IELTS, they could make a direct application with the advice of Intellectual. I do advise that strongly. We also have our pre-degree foundation programs that are attractive, but if one is applying, it would be done on what's called StudyLink, which is a platform that allows, a centralized platform that allows students to apply for undergraduate for up to 4 universities. However, because competition for places, particularly for international students, is so high, one has to look very carefully at the ratio of places, and some of those are restricted, and they have another channel called numerus fixus, because if you've got medicine or some of the most competitive finance or economics degrees or science degrees, you really have to make sure you're applying well in time for the deadline, because there are, as I say, limited options for that. International fees, a little bit cheaper, normally ranging between 7,500 to 15,000 per year. But again, with StudyLink, you can apply direct, but I strongly advise using StudyLink because it's more regulated. Be conscious of that deadline. For non-EU nationals applying to the Dutch system, you need to be looked carefully by having those applications in place by the 1st of April. They too have the orientation year, like a graduate post-study. That again would be for students who qualify with a Dutch degree, undergraduate or postgraduate, and they have the opportunity of what we call an orientation year resident permit. So when you have your first visa to study at undergraduate or postgraduate, you have a resident permit as an international student, and then it transfers into what's called an orientation year. And that gives an opportunity to search for employment in the Dutch labour market for a year or so. And once you have gained some employment, then you transfer onto that different visa status as an employee. There's a link there for more information. Yeah. This is just a quick snapshot of why ONCAMPUS is so good at what we do and providing the best preparatory courses for students, no matter what subject field you're going on to. We have ONCAMPUS Amsterdam working very closely, particularly in the field of business and political sciences or social sciences, and it gives the opportunity of not just improving English or even your Dutch, but improving those academic grades, getting an orientation, having the right quality of study skills in place. And obviously in-house we have our expert guidance in terms of progression and giving support to students applying, and then our students moving forward onto that degree outcome that they're so much wanting in terms of career development as a graduate. Speeding on to Sweden, is that right? Right, okay. That's interesting. So Sweden's much smaller as a country, a bit more expansive, sorry, smaller population I meant. And we take it for granted, but in every aspect of our lives at the moment, we will have a product or we will have furniture or cars or electronics that's been inspired and innovated from Sweden, with its significant focus for a long time now on innovation and enterprise and design. And so these are just a brief snapshot of some of those products and companies and that Sweden is renowned for. In terms of its global standing, it's in the top 5 in the world when it comes to providing education. We work very closely with the University of Lund, which is in the top 100 ranking of QS universities. And there's quite a number of other Swedish universities the same. What's interesting about the teaching and the approach with the Swedish system at school level, primary and secondary, but at tertiary, at high level, is a real focus on creative and innovative thinking. And that's found in every subject area, every level of education. And it's Sweden itself. I've interviewed quite a number of professors, Swedish professors, and they have fantastic encouragement and inspiration to students to think independently, to think creatively, and to think critically. And for everyone in the class, and I've observed a couple, everyone must contribute their ideas or opinions. And there's no contest, there's no conflict, because Swedish or Scandinavian people don't particularly like conflict, but it's a way of encouraging active thinking and creative thinking. And I think that's quite significant, because everyone's expected to be an active learner. Everyone's expected to express their opinion as well, even if there is discussion and maybe argument, or debate is a better word, I think. And there's a very, I think, kind relationship between the teachers and the students from first name terms onwards, from the first day onwards, which is a little bit different to some of our more formal university environments. Yep, and 90% of people in Sweden speak Swedish. Why study? Well, I think some of it I've already mentioned. Obviously, it has the reputation for Nobel Prize winners and awarding specialist areas and experts over generations and decades. I think it's a great location for international students. It's a sustainable environment. Everything that's done in Sweden is done on a sustainable platform. It's one of the world's leading inspirations for all nations in terms of addressing pollution, our planet, caring for the people, strong evidence of gender equality between male and female in all aspects. And that's measured obviously on what we call a global gender map. We'll see how maybe I might rate on that, I don't know. People are extremely friendly and polite at all times, from my experience when I visited. And as I said earlier, everything is done in a constructive way. And if there's any difference of opinion or views or comments, you have to work collaboratively with people and in a constructive way. And that's why everyone, I think, is very friendly and supportive when you go there. Smaller number of universities, perhaps. I think overall something like 38. They're all full scale. Many of them are quite specialized. You have to select very carefully which universities. Some are more competitive than others. High emphasis, like in Holland, as being a research-based university. But at the same time, more information can be found per institute if you go onto that website, which is Study in Sweden, and it'll give you the specialisms of particular universities. We work very closely with Lund. I go on to the next slide. Oh, sorry. I'll cover that now. That's fine. The labour market, because there will be interest, obviously, with post-study work visas. Again, this gives the opportunity of anyone with a Swedish degree, undergraduate and postgraduate. You have a year of opportunity to search for employment. But I think it has to be noted that the labour market for Sweden, for employability, is highly specialised, very similar to Norway, where my boys are. You're talking of STEM-related subject areas particularly. It has one of also the highest employment rates of all EU countries. IT, telecommunications, anything in the firm in the area of leading edge skills are much in demand. They can't satisfy it with just their national students. They will be looking for international talent. Those areas of sciences, innovation, IT, remember that Sweden invented Bluetooth as a technology which we're all using now in every aspect of digital communications. And the actual reference to the student graduate is called a resident permit for applying to stay after you qualify at the degree level. But again, as I said, labour market is perhaps more highly specialised, particularly than the UK and even for Holland. Yes, finally, yes, we work very closely with Lund University, which is top world ranked. High focus, particularly on the sciences in all aspects, whether that's engineering, neurosciences, stem cell, biorevolutionary, a whole new growth of biofarm now, revolution taking place. So these are particular areas that will be attractive, and a good degree from that with good background and good interest, strong possibility of employability and applications beyond or for research moving forward. Next slide. And we've had ONCAMPUS Lund successful with its students year by year. We do work also very closely with other Swedish universities, and there is a strong platform of accomplishment from ONCAMPUS Lund with progression not just to Lund, but also to Uppsala and Gothenburg university options for, particularly for postgraduate, but also for undergraduate students progressing on to Kristianstad, or if you wish to specialize in land economy, land-based industries, then at SLU, we work very closely with them as well. Yep, that's where a lot of those inventions took place. So small country, small population, but a powerhouse for innovation and technology and science. Thank you. And then finally, Andre, quick snapshot of entry requirements to enter onto the degree programs. Obviously, you have great advantage, and I strongly advise now that one considers on-campus Lund as a preparatory course, even a short course, because it strengthens your prospects of application onto those degree courses. But there's a brief snapshot of the standard type of fees per institute as for bachelor's or postgraduate for information on that. Again, high level of English. Everyone in Sweden more or less speaks English too. And then there's just a checklist. A lot of this, for those listening participants, intellectual has good knowledge and insight. Will, my colleague, also will be available for any specific questions related to applications for entering into the Swedish system from Russia in terms of school qualifications or degree qualifications of what's normally expected for on-campus requirements in terms of entry or for direct entry. I think that's, yes, there you go.
Oh, thank you, Peter. And I'm resending a question from Facebook from Sveta. She's asking, do I need to take any additional entrance exam for the universities in Amsterdam?
Not particularly. I mean, if you're applying, you really, if it's postgrad, is it for postgraduate, the student's asking, or is it undergraduate?
I have no idea.
Right. For undergraduate, no need, but you would need a confident level of English, but also in mathematics if you're applying for STEM-related foundations or for degree. If it's postgraduate, you would need to have a respectable GPA in your first degree to apply, but again, a respectable at least 6.5 if it's a direct entry, or 5 IELTS if you're joining our on-campus Lund pre-master program, preparatory program. So it will be on average normally, but normally there's no real need for special entrance exams. Some universities might require for more competitive degrees a GRE or a GMAT, possibly for the business school if it's an MBA, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If the student's applying for MBA, that is. Yeah.
Thank you. And a question from Alexandra. Do you have scholarships, well, of course, scholarships for the fall 22 intake in Amsterdam, Sweden?
Yes, there are opportunities. One would have to research very carefully because it does vary from institute to institute. But yes, there are scholarships available for international students for degree courses. And also, if one, again, I would encourage a preparatory course like an on-campus UFP, undergraduate foundation, or MFP, or pre-masters. We have scholarships and bursaries to assist students there with the academic fees. But yeah, there are certainly scholarships available.
Okay, thank you very much again, Peter. And я вижу, что к нам вернулся Брайан O'Malley. Я надеюсь, все в порядке. So, Brian, welcome back. Nice to see you again.
Apologies, everyone. I mentioned that Peter probably would need more time, so I obliged him by giving him a little more time. Unfortunately, I had a little technical difficulty, but I'm back, and Mari's going to help me with the slide presentation. I'm just going to pick up where I left off. As I mentioned, there are over 4,000 colleges and universities in the U.S. through OnCampus Boston and IIT, and in cooperation with our partners at Intellectual, we can make all of these universities available, accessible to your students. Let me go to my slide. Oh, perfect. So I'm going to talk about the first one. To start with talking about the Boston program. Boston program is a undergraduate pathway only, but through the on-campus Boston program, students have access to a special model, a very unique model, which is called Come Here, Go Anywhere. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to finish the presentation talking about IIT, which is a fantastic STEM university right in the center of the country. It has a lot of different options there. Students can attend as pathway undergraduate, pathway graduate, but they can also do direct entry as undergraduate and graduate. So there's a lot of different options at IIT. So why would a student in Russia choose OnCampus USA? One of the greatest things about our program are the flexible entry requirements. If any students have tried to apply to some of these top schools in the US, often they have to have very high GPAs in high school. They have to take an SAT. They need a personal statement. By coming through OnCampus Boston, you can avoid all of those kind of stumbling blocks, all those kind of compliance issues, and we make it as easy as possible for students to join our program. In fact, there are three typical students who join our program. The first would be students who maybe missed the deadline to a really competitive school they are interested in attending in the US. So these deadlines, they start sometimes 9 months, sometimes a year in advance. You have to have all your paperwork and your grades in order to be considered. That's not the case with OnCampus Boston. We can take students almost up to the start date. So there's a lot of flexibility in applying to our program. And then once the students are successful in our program in years 2 through 4, we can help them transfer into that kind of dream school they were hoping to attend. The other type of student who joins our program is a student who maybe struggled in high school. Maybe they don't have the grades to get into the type of school they want to, or their parents have really high expectations for them. We can take a student like that, really help them have a really successful first year studying with us in Boston, and then transfer them into these schools that they really wanted to get into in the first place. And then the final type of student that we very common in our program is students who maybe started university in their own country, or maybe even started here in the US and were unsuccessful. We give them a second chance to come study with us with a lot of support from my team to really make them as successful as possible and get them back on track to the goals they had hoped to achieve in the beginning. Great thing about our program is when you come to OnCampus Boston, you don't waste any time. You earn all the same credits as a first year college student. So all the 30 credits, in addition to that, we give you a lot of support to make sure that you're successful in all the courses you take in the first year, and you understand how to transfer, and we're there to help you transfer to the, identify schools that are appropriate for you, and then make sure that you have all the paperwork and you have the credentials in order to transfer when the time comes. And the great thing about OnCampus Boston, you can study just about any major. If you want to study business in Boston, you want to study aviation in Miami, you want to study science, technology in Chicago, or art in California, those are all options for us. And we've transferred students to hundreds of universities over our 10-year history here in Boston, hundreds of universities in the US. The great news is this year we have a lot of partnerships with nationally ranked universities. And the way it works is that when a student applies to OnCampus Boston, they get a acceptance letter to our program, but they also get a co-branded letter showing the university they may be interested in, which is one of our partners. And that's really great. It makes the parents feel real comfortable. They understand that there's what the pathway forward is for these students. And then finally, I'm going to finish the presentation talking about STEM majors at IIT, which is a fantastic STEM university. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a STEM means, and we'll talk about a little bit about the work opportunities. Next slide, Mary, please. Okay, so to sum it up, in Boston, students would start at our campus at Curry College here in Boston. They would do their first year. They would earn all of their credits during the first year, and then they would also apply as a transfer student for years 2 through 4 to their dream school. And it could be one of our nationally ranked partners, one of our 7th grade partners, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a minute, or it could be any of the 4,000 schools and universities here in the US. So just there's so much opportunity when you come to OnCampus Boston, and we're open for business here in the US. There is a big push to get international students back here in the US. It's never been a better time to apply to the US. Application standards are dropping. They're making it accessible to students from all over the world, and we're really looking forward to welcoming students back, especially our Russian students. We've had some great success stories, but we're looking for more. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the national ranks signed over the last year. Elon University, it's a top 100 school. I think most recently it was ranked number 83. It has a wide range of majors, especially in the humanities and business, psychology. It has scholarships available for our students who earn a B average or higher in our program. Scholarships are up to $4,500. It's in a beautiful part of North Carolina, really safe, really pleasant campus, and there's great work opportunities. Students could do an internship in Los Angeles during 1 year, or they could do an internship in New York, and then they can finish the degree back at North Carolina. So really happy to be working with this partner. Really great ranking, and great location, great weather, great place to go to school. Next slide, please. Cincinnati, great partner. This Cincinnati is a great opportunity for students who want to come and they want to live in an area of the U.S. that's less expensive than the coast, because the East Coast where Boston is, the West Coast where California is, it gets expensive to live there. But to study in Cincinnati at this highly ranked university, much more affordable for a lot of students. And on top of that, they offer great scholarships. For students who earn a C or higher, their scholarships up to $1,500,000 a year that renew over the 3 years that students are in the program. So, and they have over 300 majors. So just about anything you want to study is available at Cincinnati. Really happy to be working with them. Next slide. UMass Lowell, great partner, part of the flagship university here in Massachusetts. It's a great transfer options for students who start at ONCAMPUS Boston and want to stay in the Boston area. They have fantastic programs, great business program, great engineering programs, and they also have a fantastic music program. So really happy to be working with them. We just visited them recently. We're looking to do more with them. They have a fantastic 4+1 MBA program. They have graduate programs. So very happy to work with them, and scholarships up to $20,000 per year. We've already had students who've earned that $20,000 scholarship that repeats over the 3 years students are there. Next slide. Florida Tech, fantastic partner. Again, it's in Florida. It's right on the Space Coast. So right where NASA launches a lot of the rockets, has a fabulous aerospace program, has a fabulous aviation program. They even have their own planes and their own airport if you want to study aviation. Scholarships of up to $15,000 per year. All a student needs to earn in our program is a 2.7 or higher GPA. So it would be like a C+, B- in total to qualify for the scholarship and to qualify for acceptance to Florida Tech. So, and we've had quite a few students to transfer over there as well. Next slide. CCA. So this is a great addition to our partnerships. This is an art school. It's a highly ranked art school, number 29 in the country. It's in the San Francisco area. Art school can be a difficult transfer for a lot of students, or even as direct entry, because a lot of these schools require a portfolio. So a portfolio means you have to have 12, 20 different exhibits of the work that you've done before in order as part of the application process. Now, if students come to OnCampus Boston first, they can take kind of all the studio art classes that are required in the first year at CCA, plus any work they create during that time. So any art they create during that time can be used as part of their portfolio. So it really gives students a great head start, and not only completing the first year curriculum, but also creating the art that goes along with the portfolio. Fantastic location, San Francisco, it's a growing campus. Really happy to be working with them as well. And in addition to these 7 partners that we have, these 7 guaranteed progression partners, we also can help students to go to just about any school here in the US. We recently had progressions to Boston University, University of Connecticut, DePaul, down to Florida, down to University of Miami. So we've had fantastic progressions. You just tell us where you want to go, and we're going to tell you how to get there and help you with the application process. Next slide, please. So, of course, very important to a lot of students is what are my options when I'm on a student visa? Well, there's a couple of different ways students can work. One is with their student visa, they can work up to 20 hours on the campus of which they're located. So if you wanted to work in the dining halls, you wanted to work in student services, or you wanted to get a job working at the front gate. Those are all opportunities for students to work while they're studying at the school. So that goes hand in hand with just getting the visa. On top of that, there's a couple of different other ways that students can get work experience. One is through internships and co-ops. That's referred to as CPT, and that's usually, as I mentioned, at Elon University, you can do a semester in Los Angeles, you can do a semester in New York. The same thing at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is some of the best co-ops and internships available in the country, one of the best schools for that. So that's an opportunity for students to work maybe 1, even 2 semesters before they graduate. It'd probably be the 3rd semester. They would take that semester and they would work, and they'd actually sometimes they earn credits for that as well. But certainly a great opportunity to get work experience. The next way students can earn or have the opportunity to work would be through a thing called OPT. Now that falls at the end of their 4-year program. So students would do 1 year in Boston, or 4 years, or they would do 4 years, 1 year at Boston and 3 years at their transfer school, or all 4 years at IIT. Then they have an opportunity to work up to 3 years on the student visa after they finish the program. So it's usually 1 year in general for most majors, but for STEM majors, you can get an additional 2 years, so a total of 3 years of work experience after you complete your undergraduate, or your graduate degree. So really great opportunities to work here in the US. Next slide. The application process, we'll go to the next slide. Just going to talk about, I mentioned one of the great things about studying in Boston is it's very, we eliminate a lot of the barriers to coming and applying to these great schools. So when you apply to a great school here in the US, a lot of times it's going to ask you for SAT scores. They're going to ask you for high GPAs. They're going to ask you for personal statements, letters of recommendation. Those things are not necessary for joining our program in Boston. Even our English levels are as low as TOEFL 50. Now, if you look at some of these applications, some of these schools applying to them, sometimes they want TOEFLs of 100. You come to our school, you come to our program at Curry College. Come to our program at Curry College, and then you have the opportunity to bring your English up and really help you apply to these great schools. Okay. Next slide. Program dates. We have an intake that's coming up in January. So we'll have our January intake will take place early in the 3rd week of January. Applications can come as late as the 1st week of January. And then we have the fall semester that begins late in August, and we take applications as late as the 8th of August. So a couple of great opportunities to join our program. It's a 2-semester program, so students would do 2 semesters and then they would move on to the next program. Next slide. Scholarships are available. Yes, so up to 50% scholarships are available to our programs. And then if you need more details on that, just get in touch with our friends at Intellectual. They can give you more explanations. I'm sure you can have a lot of questions about it. I'll be happy to join a call if necessary to give the information on the scholarships. But yes, up to 50% scholarships available. So we're going to do everything we can to make studying in the US accessible to you. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about IIT. This is our other center, fantastic STEM center. Next slide. So the great thing about what is STEM? So STEM would be science, technology, engineering, and math majors. Benefits of a STEM major, you can see here, they're in high demand. It's a huge part of the economy, not only in the US, but also probably in your home country as well. And you have the opportunity to work up to 3 years after the program. So really great opportunities to study in a STEM university like IIT, not only for the type of majors they offer, but also for the work experience available. And next slide. This is my last slide, just about Illinois Tech. It's known as the top STEM school in one of the top STEM schools in the US. Majority of the majors are STEM majors. There's a strong focus on math and science. Their career fairs, some of the best universities, some of the best employers in the US come and recruit students directly from IIT. They do extensive research opportunities. A lot of the things that you use, everything from the cell phone to a lot of the avionics that go into planes have been invented at IIT. So it's a fantastic opportunity, a great place to study, and a great place to get hands-on experience. So that's my presentation. I think I'm actually running low on my battery here, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you lose me, I'll be jump right back in again and pick up the questions.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. We have a very specific question. Is it
Sure.
real to become an attending physician? What kind of specialties are available to foreigners, and how long does it take?
Physicians are really tough. Med school in the US is extremely difficult, extremely challenging, and especially for international students. Really, what we recommend is students can take a pre-medical major here in the US, like a biology major or a life sciences major, and then they could, they'd have to be absolutely top of the class to apply for medical school as a graduate school. Honestly, it's really, really difficult, but it's not impossible. Often what students do sometimes is they earn this biology degree, and then they look for opportunities to study medicine offshore. Maybe we have a couple of different programs to study in the Bermuda and the Bahamas, but to study here in the US in a med school program, you'd have to be the best of the best as an international student. It's not impossible, but very, very difficult.
Yeah, true. Thank you ever so much, Brian. So, друзья, если у вас еще есть вопросы по обучению в США, то, пожалуйста, пишите сейчас, задавайте, пока Брайан на связи. И если у вас остались вопросы еще касательно обучения в Великобритании и европейских других университетах, то, пожалуйста, задавайте. Я имею в виду сейчас и Швецию, и Нидерланды.
And Andre, if they want to have an individual meeting, find out about specific cases, happy to meet with you and the student anytime. I'll make myself available.
Thank you. Да, друзья, пожалуйста, если у вас есть вопросы, которые вы не хотите озвучивать в общем чате, то заполняйте нашу форму. Тут кто-то писал, что форма не отправляется. Вы знаете, я только что лично проверил, и форма работает. Возможно, какие-то сбои у вас локальные. В любом случае, пожалуйста, не теряйтесь. Прямо сейчас Ирине напишите в личку ваши контакты, по которым вы хотите, чтобы с вами связались, и мы это сделаем оперативно.
That would be the same, Andre, for all of us, because the way that we're working with you, intellectual and on campus, is that we are quite happy to make provision for one-to-one consultations with your team and with your students, and share our experience and background and knowledge with any applicant, prospective applicant. The previous inquiry about medical or medicine, physician, on campus does work with some world-leading Irish universities particularly, and also we have provision for students to go on to medicine in the UK, working with University of Central Lancashire as one, and Aston University as well. We have medical foundations. Again, it's a faster track, more opportunity and progression to go on to be a medical practitioner with UK and Europe, perhaps more so than United States, also a shorter period of time as well. But still, opportunities there with ONCAMPUS globally.
Thank you, Peter. And another question from Igor. I'm not sure if it is to the US speaker or a general question, but just a general question. Yes. What would you recommend for a person getting his first bachelor's degree in Russia? Is there any opportunity to start a foreign bachelor's degree, master's degree? Do the requirements differ?
So if you are to earn your undergraduate degree, your bachelor's degree in Russia, your opportunities are, yes, you could apply for a second bachelor's degree as long as it's a different field. You can apply for the same bachelor's degree. It's not very common, but sometimes students do earn 2 bachelor degrees. The more common would be to apply to a graduate school. And in that case, especially if it's a STEM major, IIT would be a fantastic choice because they have both a graduate pathway and a direct entry graduate program.
Okay, so, да, Игорь, пожалуйста, если вас интересуют подробности, опять же, записывайтесь на консультацию. Я уверен, что мы сможем вас оперативно связать с Брайаном напрямую, чтобы получить полный ответ, исчерпывающий.
It would be the same response for UK and Europe that Brian gave for the United States. If a student wanting to do a different, another bachelor's major, the same context, same response, same advice that Brian gave.
Thank you. Да, и с Питером тоже можем, в принципе, перекрестный допрос устроить. Another question is, where are medical specialties in Swedish campus?
On campus Lund, our programs, we don't cover medicine, so I can't give much information on that. I can only talk for UK and Ireland with our links to medical schools in those two countries. Sorry, I mean, if one looks at study in Sweden, one will find more information on their website, but I would say to you, it's very, very competitive. Mostly it's home students. Because they want Swedish doctors, etc., etc. Yeah, so it'll be UK with on campus and Ireland as well for progression onto their medical schools, where we have the greater expertise.
And Angelique is wondering, saying she's heard that partner companies of university in the UK offer work or internship in their specialty. Is it true?
Yes, it's true. The presentation I gave gives evidence to that. Post-pandemic, the way that our universities in the UK particularly are looking at building up the skill set for home national students, as well as international European, there was a lot of focus on graduate employability. So year in industry, professional placement, taking additional years, summer internships, if one is just on a 3-year major, but these are 4-year programs for undergraduate. And if it's organized through a university with their career services, it will be paid employment as well. One of our universities,
after master's program.
And same for masters. Again, I did cover that. That would be a 2-year major. Again, one of the part of that year would be in working with a company or a corporate group for a year in industry or professional placement. Nearly all our partners provide that opportunity, particularly in the London group from ONCAMPUS London and the University of London colleges, as well as Aston and Henley Reading University, particularly if you want to specialize in finance, because they have a world ranking for quality of financial pathways, undergraduate and postgraduate.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Ну что ж, друзья, время завершать наш вебинар. Большое спасибо, что вы нашли время, пока мы буквально еще минутку находимся на связи. Если у вас созрели какие вопросы, задавайте. Я еще раз в чат вывешиваю ссылку на форму, которую вы можете заполнить, чтобы получить бесплатную консультацию. And another question. Ольга, что вы имеете в виду непрерывное образование? Пожалуйста, если можно, поточнее. George, how many international A-levels would be recommended for creative students in the Netherlands? Do international and the UK A-levels differ for universities?
I assume that would be a student who's studying A-level at the moment. Would I be right? And they're applying direct to Dutch universities. I assume that's the question because they mentioned A-levels. It would be pretty standard, 3 A-level qualifications needed, good grades, obviously forecast predicted, with a strong IELTS, at least minimum 6.5, with grades at A's and B's if you're applying to, say, University of Amsterdam. But it is a selective process. Sometimes one has to be mindful. That's why even A-level students join our undergraduate foundation to increase their prospects of getting on to the degree courses at those top business schools in Holland or Sweden or UK, wherever. Yeah.
Thank you. And so Olga is wondering, do you have any special courses for those 40 plus?
40 plus, that would be, well, with our London centre, I would suggest maybe looking at ONCAMPUS London. I've had, as I center director there, we had several students who were sponsored by different corporations or governments, and they were wanting to go on to teaching or IT and joining our foundation and then applying to either London universities or Aston or Birmingham universities to do their masters. So yeah, there is a possibility, but again, one would have to research the nature of the university and the degree course carefully for visa purposes, yeah, and make sure all those criteria is met quite carefully.
Thank you, Peter. Элина спрашивает, наша компания дает только консультации или можно вместе с нами проходить подготовку к поступлению, документы, экзамены, стипендии? Элина, вы можете, да, вместе с нами, мы целиком курируем весь процесс, мы подбираем для вас идеально, исходя из вашего базиса направления.
Sorry, I've just recalled is that with our pre-masters at London, I had a professor from Japan, admittedly older than me, who went on to do his PhD at one of the London university colleges, and he was well up there in the late 70s. So yeah, all things are possible, but one has to have that skill, passion, and the energy to make it all happen. Yeah, but yeah, sorry. I thought I'll give you a story there. I've got a lot of stories to share. Okay.
Да, возвращаясь к вопросу Элины. Элина, мы агентство полного цикла, мы не предоставляем обучение, но мы вам точно подскажем все по документам, по тому, куда вам имеет смысл поступить, чтобы это было успешно. Мы поможем с оформлением и, естественно, по стипендиям это тоже к нам. Мы официальные представители. Поэтому я вам рекомендую в любом случае начать с нас. Если вы вдруг увидите, что что-то мы не можем вам предоставить, тогда уже мы подскажем, где это можно уже получить. Угу. Так, ну что ж, коллеги, большое спасибо. К сожалению, наше время подходит к концу. Всем большое спасибо еще раз за ваши вопросы и здесь, и в соцсетях, и на почту. Запись мы обязательно пришлем. Вебинар, как известно, ограничен по времени. Мы вынуждены закругляться. Здесь только общая информация. Все индивидуальные вопросы, пожалуйста, на личные консультации. Еще раз форму прилагаем в чате и приглашаем вас на эти индивидуальные консультации не только с нами, как официальными представителями, но и с конкретно представителями конкретных даже университетов и учебных заведений. В частности, вот руководство. С нами сейчас не только Брайан и Питер, с нами еще Big Boss Уилл Макайвер, который совсем недавно вернулся как генеральный представитель здесь, в России. Поэтому, если вы хотите не только пообщаться виртуально, но и желаете встретиться лично с официальным представителем этих университетов и узнать о вашей возможности поступить в тот или иной университет, будь то Соединенные Штаты Америки, Великобритания или Швеция или Нидерландов, то, пожалуйста, вы можете встретиться либо виртуально с кем-то из представителей, либо вживую даже с Уиллом Макайвером, который здесь теперь у нас в России. Поэтому всем большое спасибо. И если остались вопросы, пожалуйста, пишите, звоните, будем рады ответить. So, Marie, could you please stop the recording?